last night on our typical Monday night at 7 p.m. is because the men's college basketball national championship was taking place, and we wanted to talk about it in its entirety. And also, we are well aware that the viewers were tuned into that. We want you all to come tune into us here on a Tuesday night at 7 p.m. So let's get right to that game as Michigan beat UConn 69-63 for the men's basketball championship. And my good friend, Mr. Keith Joganatis, is a diehard Michigan Wolverines fan. And Keith, if you're tuned into this, I specifically did not invite you on today's podcast.
I was wondering how that worked.
Want to hear about it. I did not want to hear about it. I already heard enough in my text messages where he's texting me all hail to the victors and all these different things. And he's saying, oh, Michigan football and basketball fans, we can die happy now. And I'm like, dude, your football program is like in shambles right now. And he's like, yeah, but never forget 2023. I'm like, all right, whatever. Anyways, Michigan wins the national championship. It's their first as a program since 1989 when you had a guy like Rob Pelinka on the team. And now, all these years later, Michigan wins another national championship, this time led by Dusty May as the head coach in his second year after coming from Florida Atlantic University, a program that came out of nowhere and made it to the Final Four with him leading the charge. And now he, in his second year at Michigan, wins a national championship. So congrats to him. As an Ohio State Buckeyes fan, I am upset about it. Nevertheless, Toddy, I'm going to toss this one to you first because I would imagine Kevin feels upset about this just as I do as a Buckeyes diehard fan. But just, Toddy, what was your reaction to Michigan beating UConn 69-63 for the men's basketball championship?
First off, I want to say, because, I am a gambling man, gamble on this podcast. What a cover by the UConn Huskies. This line was at 6.5. Line closed at 6.5, and they won off of the hook. Kevin is not a fan of the hooks. Got saved by the hook this time. You live by the hook and you die by the hook. So closed at 6.5. They cover. Michigan wins by 6. Michigan's been destroying everybody virtually the entire tournament. I think they were winning by an average of like 15-ish points, 20 points. They just blew out the other number 1 seed, Arizona, in the Final Four, which I picked Arizona to win, and Arizona just never showed up. UConn, on the other hand, was a very improbable way to get to the national title game. Obviously beating Kevin's Blue Devils in the Elite Eight off of a miracle shot. Miracle 30-footer that was. And it's just that's just a whole nother, we can talk about that for a whole
episode.
Just the way that UConn got there and Dan Hurley, their road to the national championship, them losing in their conference championship game, actually kind of getting handled pretty in that game against St. John's, a team who really can't really shoot threes, and kind of got the score was a little bit less evident of what the game actually looked like in that conference championship game, and for them to kind of run the table in the national championship game, I don't think really anybody beforehand had UConn in the national championship. Probably would have had a team like Illinois had a really good run. I don't think we even expected them to really get as far. Duke probably would have been that team that a lot of people would have had in the national championship game. Probably a lot of people still think that Duke probably could have beaten this Michigan team
again.
But how? Neutral site game.
They're both neutral site games.
But happy for Yaxel Lindenborg. A lot of guys are going to come at him for his age and how old he is. But I think, in my personal opinion, he's going to be a top 10 player selected in the draft. Call me crazy. Thought he had one of the best years this year as a whole as a player. He's just a little bit older. And congrats to Dusty May, a guy who was in the running for the North Carolina head coaching position. Didn't think he was going to come anyway because their team was just, they were running over everybody. And I also want to give a shout out to Elliot Cadeau, former Tar Heel. Didn't work out for us, but I just thought that he played phenomenal this whole entire NCAA run, and especially in the second half of that championship game that we saw last night. He was on fire. You would have thought the Human Torch was out there playing because he was playing out of his mind. And I forget the guy's name, but he was a transfer from UConn, and he transferred from UConn. I think it was Jawan Howard's last year, and they were like one of the worst teams in basketball at the time. He transfers to UConn, or he transfers from, I think it was from Michigan to UConn, and he ended up playing against his old team, and he said it was no bad blood. So he probably feels the type of way a little bit from, hey man,
Terrace Reed.
There we go. Thank you, Shaun. Or thank you, Kevin. So it was a pretty good game. Michigan's kind of started to run away with it at the end, but then UConn hit some timely threes to help cover the spread because Dan Hurley knew, hey guys, let's keep it under 7. Let's keep it under 7 points. We'll be all right. No headbutts in this game. No headbutts from Coach Hurley. But I thought it was really cool to see Michigan because another thing I do want to mention is I did see there the Fab Five. I'm like a huge Fab Five fan. I understand I'm not old enough to know what the Fab Five is, but being who my dad is and how much of a basketball head he is, he kind of put me on who the Fab Five was. They did like a multicast on one of the off street. I think it was HBO's. They did something.
It was on ESPN. They just did like their own stream.
Yeah,
it was like the Manning. It was like the Manning stuff.
Yeah, they did like their own simulcast, and I was like, "But they brought the Fab Five back? That's insane!" So I thought it was cool to see Jalen Rose, Chris Webber, Jawan Howard. I can't forget the other two's name, but Rashad King and Raymond something Jackson. But those two, all those guys together was kind of crazy because Michigan banned them from like they basically erased the whole Fab Fire. They're like, yeah, that didn't happen. These guys took all this money, and it's crazy now because NIL is what it is now. Okay, they took a little bit of change. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So it was cool to see all those guys back, and they should bring them back, retire their jerseys, which is another thing that Kevin will probably rant about.
Agree with legacy.
I think Michigan, I think they were like 0-5 in national championships, and for them to finally come out on top, it's kind of crazy. Because if you look at all the other teams and kind of compared to this team, like those teams probably could have competed with all the other Michigan national championship runner-ups, in my opinion.
Something I want to say real quickly about Yaxel Lendenberg, as Toddy was alluding to, his age is up there for today's current college basketball landscape. Years ago, he would have been a normal age, probably right up there with the juniors and seniors, but wouldn't have been considered that old. But yesterday, actually during the game, I saw a crazy factoid about Yaxel, and props to him for grinding his way through 2 injuries in yesterday's game. He even said at halftime, "I'm playing terrible. I'm playing terrible. I feel terrible. I look terrible, but I'll be better in the second half." And he did make a couple key plays down the stretch, including a key block. So kudos to him for fighting his way through those injuries. But the interesting factoid that I found is that he was in the same recruiting class as Cade Cunningham, Evan Mobley, Jalen Johnson, Jalen Green, Jonathan Kuminga. Guys that have been in the NBA for like 4 or 5 years.
I'm pretty sure all those guys are on their second contract.
Exactly. So that's absolutely crazy. And the other thing that I wanted to get to is, Toddy, you were alluding to Terrace Reed Jr., who Kevin mentioned. He played 2 years for Michigan and 2 years for UConn. Those 2 schools won 3 championships in those 4 years. He didn't win any of them. That's just
crazy.
It's just tragic. I feel bad for that guy. And then one other thing I wanted to add before we hear from Kevin is shout out to Alex Caravan, who had a hell of a career at UConn. 2-time national champion, 3 Final Four appearances, an 18-2 record throughout the NCAA tournament. And he, as an individual player, has the most wins in UConn's men's history. UConn isn't just some program that got good over the last 5 years. They are a historically great franchise for not only women's hoops, but men's hoops as well. And you think back to all the great alumni that they've had. They were all in the stands, between a Ben Gordon to, he didn't have the best NBA career, but like a Charlie Villanueva. You also think about Kemba Walker, all these great players that came through UConn. Alex Caravan has the most wins in UConn's men's history for an individual player. So salute to him for a hell of a career, but it comes to an end with a loss in the national championship. Kevin, what was your reaction to Michigan beating UConn?
UConn just ran into a wall, man. This Michigan team has been great all year. You saw when they got the guy from UCLA, the big man, it really just changed their dynamic. They're playing Yaxu at the 3, essentially, when he's essentially a power forward. So to just have all that size out there, the Illinois transfer they got, and then the dude from UCLA. So they were really big in their front court. So to just put it all on the line and say, we're going to go out here and just be more physical than teams. For them to be the first Big Ten team to win a national championship since Michigan State in 2011 says a lot. Because we always talk about the Big Ten, how physical they are, and football this, football that, but there was 2 teams from the Big Ten in the Final Four. So you got to tip your hat to the Big Ten. Illinois almost got it done, but they ran into a brick wall on UConn, and then they played them hard. But unfortunately, UConn just got over the hump, and then Michigan got up early against Arizona, and they never looked back. But focusing on this championship game, UConn had every reason to fold. They didn't hit a single 3 in the first half. Braden Mullins, the guy who was forever going to be imprinted on my heart for the shot against Duke, he's been balling. Before that Duke shot, he was 0 for whatever. And then throughout those next 3 games, he was torching. Now he's on now he's projected to go lottery. Like, he was always projected to go first round, but playing in March and playing to that kind of caliber and winning your team games, and arguably the best shot of our lifetime. I know we have the Villanova shot, but you definitely got to put this Braden Mullins shot up there because, like Toddy said, it was a 42-foot shot. And it wasn't a jump shot. He threw it. Like, he gave it all. So for them to come out on top, hats off to Michigan. It really just goes to show, man, college football is changing. His name is Brandon May? Is that the first coach? Brandon May? The coach. You're muted.
Damn it. I tried to start using the mute button more just so people don't hear me loudly breathing in the background, and I have been getting got by the mute button over the last 3-4 episodes. His name is Dusty May.
Dusty May, perfect. So Dusty May, the coach from Indiana football, they were both there for 2 years. Both were at winning programs at a lower level, JMU and Florida Atlantic. They come to the big stage 2 years in, they're hanging banners. So it just goes to show, the college realm is changing. You can turn a program around in 2 years, but it all starts with the right coach. No matter if you don't have the right coach, you're bringing in the right players, it doesn't really matter. Toddy, for the audio-only listeners, pointing at the camera because he thinks that they have a jewel of all jewels. And I guess we'll talk about that later. But hats off to Michigan and Elliot Cadeau. I apologize because when you were at UNC, I called you everything north of dog water. People were guarding him like he was a Ben Thompson, Ben Simmons, let him shoot. And now I told Toddy at halftime, I said, I don't know who Elliot Cadeau is, but he looks like Trae Young with dreads. So hats off to them. You definitely thought a coach like Dan Hurley would be able to outcoach him, and they fought back. And it was a little too much, too little, too late, too much. So hats off to them. But they did their best. But Michigan unfortunately gets it done. And as a Big Ten fan, I love to see it, but I would have preferred if we were going for a Big Ten team for it to be Illinois.
Yeah, me too, especially given that Andrej Stojakovic from Sacramento, California, Jesuit high school, the son of King's great Peja Stojakovic, he was leading the charge for that Illini team, and they were my pick to win it all. And if they had won it all, I would have won multiple bracket challenges and been much more wealthy. Instead, I got nothing. So great run, but almost a little bit of a tease for me. And now, to your point, Kevin, the Big Ten is on an absolute roll between Indiana winning the football national championship to Michigan winning the men's basketball championship. And what we're going to get to next, even though it's still hard for me to consider them a Big Ten team, the UCLA Bruins winning the women's basketball championship. The Big Ten in the NIL era has just been on a roll. The SEC, they can't pay people under the table anymore. Things are starting to balance out. That's all I'm saying. One other thing I wanted to add about the men's tournament, since we didn't really break down the round to rounds this year, is going back to the Elite Eight. One stat I wanted to mention that pertained to UConn that was very remarkable, and I've had it saved for a couple weeks, is that one seeds were 134-0 when leading by 15 plus points at halftime before March 29th, and they are now 134-1. Kevin is shaking his head because his beloved Duke Blue Devils had a 44-29 lead against UConn in the Elite Eight at halftime, and they went on to lose 73-72. It took a very remarkable shot at the end, and I think Caden Boozer, he's going to be better off after that whole situation. Like, obviously, it sucks for him in the moment that he had to go through that, but I think he's going to grow from it, and he's also going to be probably one of the most popular players in college basketball next season because Cam will be in the NBA. The reason why I say that, Kevin, the reason why I say that, I see the look on your face, but the reason why I say that is the way that he handled that terrible play and how he handled it with maturity and class after it all happened. I think he got a lot of people on his side, and a lot of people who just thought, oh, he's the other Boozer. Now they're going to be watching him next season, and they're going to see his improvement. And I just think that it'll end up being like a Disney movie where it's like, oh, he hit rock bottom just for him to rise back up to the top. And
in the NBA.
Well, maybe you think he's going to the NBA right now?
He's not going back to college, brother. The run he had in the ACC tournament and the March Madness, there's no reason to go back to school.
What if he is a late first round pick, early second round pick, and NIL money is there?
He'll be a first round pick. He'll for sure be a first round pick.
Will he be a lottery pick?
20?
No, he won't be lottery, but I mean he'll be first round. And I mean, essentially, isn't it better off going to a better team?
Yeah, that's fair.
And I love me some Boozer, but we got some dogs coming in next year, so it's probably best for him to go. And if he does come back, I think he might transfer, but I don't think he would wear a Duke jersey no matter what.
Oh, okay. Well, Kevin just stomped out my Disney movie. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Yes, it is a fair point.